Hey y'all, welcome to the Filling Station. It's a new day, another opportunity to either make money in this market or to just learn from the market. But first, let me give my disclaimer. I am not a financial advisor. I just enjoy teaching people how to build generational wealth. And yes, the stock market is just one of those avenues. So this video is for educational purposes only. If you could please like, share, comment, subscribe, y'all, because we learn and we grow together. With that being said, let's get started. So we are looking at NVDA today. We closed at 130.129, and as you can see right here, y'all, this is our support area. This is our resistance area. We have been trading in this little zone here, right? So support is around 134.54, resistance at around 134.91. We did make a high here of 135.16, only to get rejected and come back down in this zone here. So where are the trouble places for NVIDIA as of right now? We need to break back above the 134.91. Keep in mind we could possibly have trouble again, 135.16. Should we break that level, 135.46, breaking that 135.67. Now breaking this level 135.67, we could possibly have trouble again, 136.17, again here at 136.42. Should we break that 136.42 here, let's see here, we could possibly have trouble again at 136.67, 136.67. Should we break that level, 136.96 and 136.99, there's a few layers of resistance there. So if you're trading NVIDIA, those are possible rejection areas or resistance areas. Now back to the downside. Should we break back to the downside, we would need to break under this level of 134.54, and I'm going to use this 20 EMA as a support area for us as of right now, 134.25. Should we break that level, we could possibly find support 134.03. Breaking that brings us back to around the 133.70, and as you can see, that ATR trail and stop is forming there and has formed there, and that's a previous support area. Now it's another support area under here and another support area here. So it looks as if NVIDIA is going to have a few areas of support. I would say at this area of 133.47, 133.63, or the 133.71. So somewhere in that range is going to be a strong area of support for NVIDIA. So if that's something that you trade, I say trade carefully, right? So should we break the 133.44, we could very well come back down to the 132.95 and find support. That is where our 200 EMA is and a previous support area or resistance area that we have marked. So I would say trade carefully under this 132.89. We could very well come back to 132.29, breaking that level 131.81. Let me make sure I have that right. 131.81. So if you are trading NVIDIA today, those are possible areas to the upside and to the downside. Again, y'all, not financial advice. Let me say that, right? So we are now looking at Tesla. We closed at 339.34, and it was trading in a zone, in a gathering spot, as I like to say, only to come up and make a high of 349.80, came back down, but it looks as if that 20 EMA is our support area, but it's right there at an area that we have marked at 346.40. So Tesla have a lot of support in this area here. So back to the upside, it will need to get back above this level of 347.27, which is kind of above the 5 EMA. Definitely need to watch it. Let me see if I can make that a little bit bigger. We definitely need to watch this area here. Now, if we should break that, we could possibly have trouble 347.46. Again at 347.78. Breaking that brings us back to around, let's say 348.34. Breaking that brings us back to around 348.75, and again 349.37. Now if we break that 349.37 area for Tesla, we could have trouble again, 350.02. Breaking that 350.61. Should we break that, 351.88 could be a rejection area for us, and if we should break that, we could possibly have trouble again around 353.02. And if we should break that 353 area for Tesla, which is possible, let me say that, we could very well have trouble again around 355.83. However, anything could stop us. We could very well get stopped out somewhere in between this area here. I would say trade carefully if Tesla is something that you trade, especially if you're trading it to the upside. Now back to the downside, possible support areas. It would definitely, if we should break under this 346.23 area, we could very well come back to around 345.19. And that 345.19 area, if we break that level, we could very well come back to around 344.20. That is our ATR trailing stop. Our 50 EMA is at 344.58. And I have another level marked here at 344.29. So it's kind of like NVDA. I do that often. It's kind of like NVDA has a few areas of strong support, in my opinion, right here. So if you're trading Tesla today, just know that 344.20 area, or 344.29, 344, let's say 50, 344.50 is going to be a strong area of support. Should we break that, we could very well come back to 343.25. If we lose that area, 342.76. Again, here at 342.15, breaking that brings us back to 341.60. And as you can see, that is where our 200 EMA, very close to it at the 341.54. I like to see this, y'all. I like to see where, even if I didn't use the moving averages, I can still mark the levels where they would possibly be based on just simple support and resistance. I needed to point that out, right? So if by chance we lose this area of support at the 341.54 area or 341.60 area for Tesla, we could very well come back to 340.85. And if we should lose that area, 340.12, and breaking that brings us back to around 338.83. However, I need to say something stopped us right here at the 339.59. So that 339.59, let's say from this level of 340.12, we have 339.59, and then there's a level of 338.83. Now Tesla is an inside day candle, and it looks as if we have already broken through the trigger, which was the 343.25, and already reached the target pre-market, which was the 347.27. I say so often, y'all, Tesla does what Tesla does, right? So now back to the downside, if by chance we break under this 333.13 area, we could very well, come back. The target to the downside is 331.39. So if you are trading Tesla today, and I say so often, it does what it does, right? It moves the way it chooses. So if that is something that you trade, I would say trade carefully. I always say, y'all, once it goes against your why, get out, live to trade another day, right? So we are looking at AMD, and as you can see, we closed at 110.31. As of right now, our resistance is around the 114.28, and support is right here at the 113.83, right? Look at where the body of those candles are. So back to the upside, breaking beyond the 114.28, we could possibly have trouble. 114.61, again 114.83. Should we break that 115.20, breaking that 115.20, something stopped us at this 115.33, so I need to be mindful of that. If we should break that level, we could possibly have trouble again. 115.79, breaking that brings us back to around the 116.86. However, something could stop us out in between that. Let's say the 115.79 and the 116.86 right here. So I would say if you're trading AMD to the upside, those are possible rejection areas. Again, not financial advice. Now back to the downside, under the 113.83, we could very well come back to around the 113.56, breaking that level 113.36. And if we should break that, you see 113.01. And that's where our 20 EMA is as of right now, and a previous level that I have marked at the 113.01. Again, I like to see that. I just like to see that. So now if we should break this 113.01 area, the ATR trailing stop is forming at the 112.72. So should we break that level, we could very well come back to around this area of 112.01, breaking that 112.01, 111.42. And if we should break that 111.03, breaking that brings us back to this 110.65. Something stopped us here for a reason, so we definitely need to watch that if you're trading AMD. Again, not financial advice, so I say y'all trade carefully. It's going to be an interesting day in the market, considering yesterday was a holiday and the market was closed, so we could very well move in either direction, let's say that. So we are now looking at Meta. We closed at 627.06, and it has found support at around this area of 639.05, resistance at around 641.47. Now back to the upside, it will need to break back above this 641.47, we could possibly have trouble 642.60, 643.31, breaking that 643.31. You know, something can stop us here before our next level here of 645.83. So I would say trade carefully in this area. If that's something that, if Meta is something that you trade, just know if we break beyond the 645.83, we could possibly have trouble against 646.56 and breaking that 648.31. Should we break the 648.31 area, we could possibly have trouble 651.25. So there is going to 648 to the 651. Something can stop us out in between that. So I say trade carefully if that's something that you trade today. And it looks as if Meta is an inside day candle. And, you know, the trigger to the upside, if we break the 643.31, the upside target for Meta is 646.56. Now, back to the downside under 630.51. Downside target for Meta today is 630.02. So let's go back and look at those support places back to the downside. If by chance we break under this level of 638, let's say 639.05. Should we break the 639.05, I'm going to use my 20 EMA, which is really close to a level. Let's just use the 637.38, even though that 20 EMA is in between that at the 638. So the 638 down to the 627.38 could be a support place for Meta. Should we break that level, we could very well come back to around this level of 636.22, and if we should break that 635.49, in my opinion, it's kind of show us like strong support as with NVDA and the other ones. This 200 EMA, the 50 EMA, and a line here that I have marked at the 635.49. Y'all, I just really like to see that. So if by chance we break under, I would say around this 635.09 area, we have broken through a strong area of support, in my opinion, for Meta. So we could very well come back down to this ATR trail and stop. However, there's another layer here at the 633.80. So Meta could possibly, you know, even if we break this level of support at the 635.50 area, we could very well come back down to the 633.80 and find some type of support as it did on this level here. Now, should we break these areas of support, that means we've broken through strong areas of support, we could very well come back to, I would say, around this area of 631.97. Should we break the 631.97, we could very well come back to 630.51. Breaking that brings us back to around 628.45, and if we should break that area, we could very well come back to, let's say, around the 626.75, and breaking that brings us back to the 626.18. So if you are trading Meta today, those are possible support and resistance areas. Again, y'all, not financial advice, and I say trade carefully today. We did have a few inside day candles for today. And I think MRK is an inside day candle. If by chance we have already broken through the trigger, which would have been the 77.92, target to the upside 78.35, and as you can see, we've already reached that target pre-market. I like using inside day candles, y'all. It helps build our watch list, and it kind of gives us a possible target for that stock. So if by chance you're trading MRK, it is an inside day candle. However, it does not mean we cannot come back to the downside. So downside trigger 77.06. If we should break that, we could come back to 76.70 is the target. So MRK is an inside day candle. Marvell, MRVL, is also an inside day candle, and it kind of looks the same. We've already broke through that trigger of 61.33, already reached the target of 62.88. We've actually made a high of 63.40. So Marvell is an inside day candle. Now back to the downside. Under this 59.99 area, we can come back to 59.30, and I'm going to mark this area here. Why? Because something stopped us in this area for a reason. This here, and it's kind of like where the body of these candles are here. So I definitely need to remember that. And just for charting purposes, so Marvell, MRVL, if that's something that you trade, it is an inside day candle. I say trade carefully. Snap is also an inside day candle. It too has already broken through the trigger. Now, I have an upside target for Snap at $8.47. Now, To the downside, under $8.20. Downside target $8.16. So if Snap is something that you trade, I say trade carefully. UAL, United Airlines, is also an inside day candle. It's interesting that it too has already broken through the trigger, 75.44. Upside target was 76.49. We've made a high of 76.60. Now back to the downside, under 73.74 gives us a downside target of 72.91. So if UAL or United Airlines is something that you trade, it is an inside day candle. Mark your levels and trade carefully. Wolf, WOOF, is an inside day candle. And let's see, it is not an inside day candle. I'd have that on my list. Zoom, ZM, is an inside day candle. Let's fix that. So if by chance we break above 82.02.05, upside target is 83.10. Now to the downside, under 79.18. Downside target for ZM is $78.43. So if that is something that you trade, I say trade carefully, y'all. In this market, anything is possible. Nothing is guaranteed. There's so many ways, y'all, to trade the market and, to make money in the market. And what's challenging is trying to figure out what way works best for you. So we are now looking at the SPY. We closed at 579.11. As you can see, we've made a pre-market high of 588.68. And it too, I'm going to see if I can make this a little bit bigger. There we are. So it has found support here at the 587.20 area. It's under the 5 EMA. So where are the possible trouble places back to the upside? Looking at the SPY, something stopped us here. Support was here in this area here. So I definitely need to remember that going back to the upside, it's going to be our resistance area, 587.58. Should we break that level, we could possibly have trouble again around the 588.13. Should we break that, possibly have trouble again, 588.38. Again, something stopped us in this area here. I need to be mindful of that. Back to the upside, 588.38. So should we break that, 588.68. And again here at 588.92, breaking that brings us back to 589.20. If we break that 589.20, we could very well come back to 590.16. And as you can see, there is some, little gap in between that. So anything could stop us out in this area, or we could very well get stopped out in that area. Now, back to the downside. Excuse me. I do apologize. I have been losing my voice all weekend, so I do apologize for that. Now, back to the downside for the SPY, under 587.20, we could very well find support here around the 586.67. Should we lose support here, we could find support 586.30. And as you can see, y'all, I like to see those. That's really close to where the 20 EMA is as of now, which is right at a support area that I had marked at the 586.29 or the 586.30 area. Now, should we break that, there's a few layers of support here at the 586.15. Again, here at the 586.08. Breaking that brings us back to 585.81. Breaking that, 585.74, 585.56. Those are going to be support areas. 580 or possible, let me rephrase that, possible support areas. 585.39. Under that, 585.29, under that 585 even. And if we should break that, there's a few layers here. So I would say under 584.88 or 584.90, we could very well come back to around 584.67. The ATR trailing stop as of now, 584.54. So if the SPY is something that you trade today, y'all, I say trade carefully. It is going to be a very interesting day in the market. I say mark your levels and make sure you use your stop losses, or have your discipline to use your stop losses, or whatever it is that you choose to use. Make sure you have discipline to get in your trade at the right time and out of your trade at the right time. So I hope that everyone have a very profitable and a very, very productive day today. If you could please, again, like, share, comment, subscribe, y'all, because we learn and we grow together. So until next time, be blessed as well as a blessing unto others.